Hey friends, Shadylikeatree here, and welcome into today's history lesson. For the longest time in my videos, and not so much anymore, but maybe a year or so ago, I started saying, remember the Alamo at the end of my videos, and I don't do it anymore, but I say it a lot in real life, and I say it a lot on Twitter, and so I thought I would make this video, and I've been wanting to make this video a long time. But this video is about the Battle of the Alamo and the Alamo itself, and I'm going to provide some information and some insight into this battle. Before I get into it, I will say that a lot of the details of this battle are kind of not concrete. There's a lot of he said, she said in historical context because there's not an official record due to reasons I'll get to in a moment. But basically, there's some discussion among Texans and other historians as to who is a credible witness and who may or may not have been at the Alamo, even though some people say their great-great-great-grandfather, whose name was XY, was there. That's not always true. So I'm going to mostly use the Wikipedia page as kind of my source here. I'll be sure to link that in the description. But before I get into discussing the actual Alamo, I do want to say this is a really, really nice gameplay. Perhaps the best ever gameplay I've gotten ever for any Call of Duty, but it is most certainly the best Advanced Warfare gameplay, and this is the kind of gameplay I was waiting for to do this video. So the Battle of the Alamo was really a siege followed by a battle. So it was a 13-day siege in what is now commonly referred to San Antonio, Texas. At the time, Texas was its own, or was fighting for independence from Mexico. They were at that time the Republic of Texas. They were not yet a state. They didn't become a state until I believe in the 1840s. But this Battle of the Alamo was between February 23rd and March 6, 1936. It was really kind of the first domino in a series of dominoes that kind of led to the essential downfall of the Mexican army during this time. Basically, kind of what happened, and overall what happened is Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, more commonly referred to just as Santa Anna, was the commander slash leader of the Mexican army that was gathered there. Many numbers have his strength in the neighborhood of 1,800. And he was trying to get north into Texas to kind of reclaim Texas, since Texas had kind of declared its independence. Stationed at the Alamo, which was essentially a church and mission, kind of a fort kind of deal from the Indian settlement days. Originally was about 100 men. It swelled to anywhere from 185 to 260 men, depending on whose accounts you take into place. So you're talking 1,800 Santa Anans versus less than 300 Texans, and not just Texans. There were men from Tennessee, from all over the United States that had come to during the 13-day siege to come fortify the fort and were prepared to lay down their lives. I think the number is closer to the low end than the high end based on some of the witnesses and some of the things I've read. I think it was right around 200, but some people credit it being 185 to 260, and that's the number I'm going to use. I'm going to use that number kind of, moving on. Many people say, it was 10 to 1, but I kind of think it was more 9 to 1, which doesn't make a whole lot of difference. But anywhere from 9 to 1 to 6 to 1 were the odds, Mexicans to Texans. There were about 400 to 600 Mexican army soldiers that were killed and injured. All but 3 of the people at the Alamo were killed who participated in the siege and battle. Everyone was killed who participated in the battle and was there for the final moments of the battle. However, there were a couple of scouts that were sent out during the siege to warn other Texans what was happening, try to get more help and try to recruit more people to come fight. And there was also one slave who was a slave to, I believe it was William Travis, who participated in most of the battle, but after Travis was killed, he stopped fighting and kind of went inside and hid amongst the women and children, and he just let them know that he was a slave and he was not there of his own will, and he did not participate in the battle, even though that was not true. So he kind of lied, but I think he did the right thing because, he would have been killed otherwise. And it's not like the men who laid their lives down, one more man would have mattered. It wouldn't have. prior to the Alamo, the Mexican troops had been virtually driven out of Texas completely. Um, it was a war that the Texans felt like they weren't being ruled properly. Again, it's the revolution time and time again. It's the same story, different day. And Santa Anna was in charge of making sure Texas did not leave Mexican territory. So he tried to negotiate with them for 13 days. They held out. They said, no, we do not want any of this. And then on the 13th day of March 6th, in the early morning hours, the Mexican army advanced. And there's a story that people like to tell that I'm pretty sure isn't true, but I want to tell it to you anyway. Supposedly, Davy Crockett, who is a famous mountaineer here in America, him and the Tennessee Longmen each took turns shooting at Santa Anna from a long distance. And this is before modern riflery. So we're talking 1830s rifles that had no accuracy, no power, no distance. And supposedly he shot the brill on Santa Anna's hat, and that was the closest anyone came. I cannot confirm this. There are no official accounts that really say this with any accuracy, but that's one of the many stories that are told out of the Alamo. But basically, there were 3 waves of the battle. The first 2 waves were repelled by the Texans. The Texans were hopeful that they could inflict heavy losses upon the Mexican army and they would and fall back. However, upon the 3rd wave, they were able to climb the walls and start killing and breaching and turning the cannons on the Mexican soldiers. Here's where things get a little sketchy with the details and the facts. Some people say everyone died fighting. All 182 to 257 men died while fighting. However, there are some people who believe that a handful of Texans surrendered in the mission and were later executed for treason, among those being Davy Crockett. I operate under the belief that everyone went down fighting because I think that's what those men were about. But I don't. Anyone who says they fell to the mission, I don't disagree with them because I can't, prove them wrong, basically. I can't point to any evidence that says they're wrong. The evidence that says they're right, I don't really trust, but I admire that they want to get the fact story. So this isn't like I hate those people because they could very well be true, and I just don't believe they're true because I like to think highly of the character of the men who were willing to sacrifice their lives to try to delay the Mexican army as long as possible. There's been 2 films. Disney did a remake a couple times. There's been an Alamo film that came out, I think, in 2004. There was a 1960 film, and kind of all that. I've kind of summarized the background quite a bit. David Bowie, who's famous for the Bowie knife, he participated in the battle. He was sick during it and kind of in bed. And when the story goes that when he was in bed, he killed 6 people from his bedside, sick and wounded, ran out of bullets on his 6th shot, and stabbed the 7th with his Bowie knife before the 8th man killed him. That's kind of, so he took 7 men down with him from his bedside, sick with, I think he had pneumonia or something like that. And basically the kind of aftermath of the Alamo is that the Alamo kind of galvanized and kind of inspired the Texan people to kind of rise up. And I think it was a couple days later, I want to say it was a couple days later, the Mexican army was camped north of present-day San Antonio, Texas, and Sam Houston rode in with a few hundred men and pretty much wiped the entire army out. And that, to me, was kind of the end of the Texan-Mexican War, and that's kind of the start for me of when Texas gained its independence. That battle on April the 21st, Texas defeated Santa Anna's camp near Lynchburg Ferry, and that was really the end because Santa Anna ordered his troops out of Texas, and that was the end of it. And because of the Alamo's impact on inspiring the Texan people, they were able to rise up and defeat Santa Anna's army and gain their independence. I do want to quickly note that there was a Texas-Spanish War that occurred, I believe, in 1846 to 1848, which often overshadows the Battle of the Alamo and what happened in the 1830s. But I thought it was important to say that this wasn't the final straw, but it was kind of the start of the end, if it were. So that's the story of the Alamo. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. If you have any questions, I'll be in the comments. Thanks. Bye.